Welcome to Do I Sound Like I Care, the podcast by, for and about unpaid family carers. I'm your host, Louise Lynch, formerly an Emmy Award-winning TV producer, now a full-time carer for my 84-year-old mum who has an Alzheimer's diagnosis. All right, Mum?
Yes.
My guest in this episode is musician, singer and educator Claire Pilling, and we discuss, amongst other things, her experience of caring for her mum during lockdown, how music can help with dementia, and the therapeutic power of pets. Warning, this podcast contains language you may find offensive if you're not an unpaid family carer. Hope you enjoy. My guest today is Claire. Hi, Claire.
Hello there.
You might think Claire's American, but she's not.
Yeah.
That's just your podcast.
Real Northern grit. Born and bred in Wigan.
And Claire has joined us today to talk about her experience of caring for her mum, who had dementia. But first of all, let's talk about you as a person and your mum as a person.
I'm a musician and a vocal coach and a practitioner. I love, I've been a professional singer my whole life, and sang from being little. That's where me and my mum shared a kinship, And I've worked in education and also in the music industry, doing singing and all kinds of wonderful things for many years. And I just love being around people that excite and inspire through music without an ego, shall we say.
Yeah.
And my mum was pretty much the same. She was a housewife from Wigan and she worked until she got married in the 70s. And then she became a housewife for us, but she was a brass band player. She loved music and she got us all playing instruments and drum kits, like my dad would literally walk in the house and walk straight out again on account of the sound. It was like the film Jumanji with drums banging and tubas playing and recorders going and people singing. And it was a very busy, active house and one full of love and singing and music.
And how many of you were there then?
4 children, me and 3 brothers.
Where do you fit in the birth order?
I'm the third in the pecking order. So 2 older brothers that should have been in Borstal by like the mid-80s and a younger brother.
Wow. Okay, so you're the only daughter.
Yeah.
That immediately puts an equal sign between a carer's role and you, because realistically, the bulk of the family caring often falls to the daughter.
I would agree.
And so how did this caring role sort of evolve?
Well, I noticed with my mum just before lockdown that things weren't right with her. And, she was very self-sufficient up until that point. Used to do her own gardening, used to be going out, and she just retired. And I thought she was just getting a little bit scatty. And, we always lived together. So it was a really great relationship. We were very close. And I think when you're really that close and observant, you kind of see that there's something not quite right. So everything was fine. And then we hit lockdown. And that was the kind of realisation that there was a problem with my mum. She was very forgetful. She used to be a good sleeper and she wasn't sleeping. She would just be walking and pacing the house like she forgot something, or she was a big smoker. She was always asking, have you got a cigarette? Have you got a cig? Have you got a cig for, the maggots outside? All this kind of stuff that comes out with dementia. So luckily we'd had some tests done in the January as the lockdown hit in the March, and she just got diagnosed as the lockdown wall came.
Right. So I was going to say a lot of people when lockdown hit went through a massive mental health crisis.
Yeah.
How did you know that it wasn't just the general kind of anxiety that a lot of people were going through, that it was actually this was a dementia disease?
Yeah, because she could remember way back, but she couldn't remember what she'd had for a breakfast. or like what she'd eaten. And I'd make her a lunch and I'd say, have you eaten that? And she'd go, yeah. But she'd give it to the beagle who was getting fatter. We have a beagle called Milo, which I have now. He's a beautiful looking boy.
Yeah.
But he's a psycho over food. So he was getting fatter. My mum was getting thinner.
Okay. That's a clue.
Yeah. And I was saying, have you eaten? Absolutely. But the dog was like, you could roll him, you know. He was like a tin, you know, a tin of beagle fat.
Yeah.
And I just knew something wasn't quite right with her. And
so her appetite went. And you mentioned, just rewinding a little bit, you mentioned that you'd always lived with your mum.
Yeah.
So were you actually sharing a place? Were you neighbours, or how did it work?
No, we were sharing. We were sharing and living together because my dad died young. So I was always with her and in and out working. So it was a great relationship, you know. We were very close, always kept in touch. Always was there for one another. And she was very brilliant with everyone that came. Her house was a very vibrant place where musicians would come in and out. She'd entertain. You know, I even had, from part of my work, doing back and vocal work, people staying from Moortown in Wigan with my mum, and she was doing the full-on B&B. Yeah. You know, breakfasts, meals, everything, you know. But was brilliant and very self-sufficient at cooking and taking care of her home and planting beautiful flowers and arrangements around the house, and all that went, you know.
Was that a gradual thing?
Yeah.
So you started, when would you say your caring responsibility started, or can you not put
I can't really put a defined time on it. I knew she was struggling getting up to that point, like about 2019 going into 2020, but I just thought she was being a little scatty and just like, oh, it's just my mum. You know, mum's getting older, a bit like kind of, you know, forgetting and stuff. And then realised that something was really wrong, you know, because it was just me and her. Yeah. And I obviously, when lockdown hit, I rang social services and I said, what do I need to do here? Because, you know, I need to help my mum and I really don't know where to start. You know, this carer's role, I didn't choose to do it. It was just something that was like, right, it's on me now. And I'm in a national lockdown. I can't go anywhere. And this could be far worse because my mum could be on her own with this. Yeah. And, you know, it was little things like not eating and also not being aware of danger, leaving cookers on, turning boilers off, flicking gas switches, all this kind of stuff. I was like, right, okay.
So she was lucky to have
very lucky that I was
carer
on the phone, like, you know, ringing everybody, and social services sent someone out, and then we help with the medication side of things to try and ease her because she was quite agitated, my mum with the dementia. So she was very high energy, very active. We were walking a lot. You know, we have quite a big garden, so she could go in the garden. But obviously I had to work as well, you know, because I'm a freelancer. So there is a wonderful, beautiful Baptist church that's built on the side of our house from the 1800s. And I asked the guys, I said, I need a space to work in because I've tried working from home and obviously doing Zoom with someone with dementia. You know, I always remember trying to do a consultation with someone to do some music, and my mum just walked straight behind and went, oh, you're beautiful. Behind me, and I was like, right, Mum, just go in there. And they were like, and then she'd come back in because she'd forget, and she'd go, oh my God, you're gorgeous. It'd be like, I'm so sorry. And I'd have to explain this before the, you know, interview or whatever. You know, that my mum, caring for my mum, and she's just recently had a diagnosis, so please don't take offence. Oh, she's here. Door crash, you know, like that kid that went viral in that video, and that kid just That was my mum with the beagle.
Rolling in.
And just like, oh, hello. So it was like, I've got to have a space where I can work independently. But that was traumatic in itself because, you know, social services, initially they didn't have a sitting service, so I had to leave her. So I had to lock doors and keep the back open, which was good, but she'd be banging on the church windows going, help me, help me.
Did she know you were in there then?
Yeah, she just wanted to be with me. She was being a bit dramatic, you know.
But I've noticed the main thing that mum needs is just constant companionship, because it's a mixture of reassurance and also just like this rudder that can steer her back into reality when she goes off on one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's really hard. So I identify with you having basically generate your own work, and you've got to find you do your work from home, which a lot of people started to do. Again, this sort of merging of lockdown and your mum's diagnosis and your caring responsibility all at once. It must be hard to kind of unpick what the caring from actually the whole nation was going through. Everybody was having to adjust to doing things on Zoom. But then you've got this added responsibility of your mum and not really being able to kind of reason with her and explain to her what's going on. And even if you do, she won't remember. So 2 seconds later, she's back,
It was brilliant, that, because I used to say, we can't go out, Mum, there's a national lockdown. What do you mean? There's a virus that could kill everybody. You're joking. Yeah. And she'd go for a cigarette and then she'd come back. Are we going out then?
Yeah.
You just feel like in this carousel of repetition, which I miss that. I miss having to repeat myself 1,000 times a day.
You're joking.
Yeah.
That is the thing I think is so hard, and not being able to answer not having to answer the same question 17 times.
Like white noise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You just filter it out, but you miss that when it's not there. You just, this space is seismic.
I mean, when I agreed to look after Mum, because we didn't live together prior to her diagnosis.
Okay.
So when I just thought, well, I run my own business, I'll be able to schedule my own time. Mum will sit watching daytime TV all day and it'll be easy.
Textbook.
So, of course, I'll sign up to this caring responsibility because it won't be a problem at all. And only when we were together, I mean, literally took a week, and I just suddenly thought, my life's completely changing now.
It's over. The life that you knew is gone.
It's over, yeah. Mine was like a huge seismic change, boom. You had to gradually adjust, and it all kind of creeping up on you and taking its toll. And you mentioned ringing social services. This idea that everybody, the thing about when you get your diagnosis is there isn't like a kind of manual out there. There should be something where
that's what I blogged about from the beginning of lockdown. I blogged about my frustration with not getting clear answers. I think the first thing was organising social care so I could get daycare for my mum, then I could get some respite. And they were like, oh, well, that's 5 weeks from now. And I was like, I need to work now. And my mum's not, capable of understanding that I need to just have a little bit of privacy. So I had to get a locksmith out over lockdown to put a lock on the door so I could work in that space until they sorted that out, and just gently phase this going into the church for an hour or two to reassure her, and sometimes open the window because it's very closely built to her house, and open the window and go, Mum, I'm all right, just go back in. Oh, okay, then have you got a cig? Yeah. So really the window I'd be giving a cig and she'd be wandering off.
Yeah.
And then she'd be back again, like bang, 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 bang on the window, like, I placate my mum with sweets. She's a non-smoker, but it's awful. It's like you just do anything to, keep them calm. And I know if I've got something to do and I give her a bag of, buttermints, normally something like that, then I can get half an hour where she'll just go through these sweets and then she'll be up again. But, it's all the tools that you've got to use. Yeah.
But going back to this idea of not having a clue at the beginning, everybody is reinventing the wheel. Every single carer who finds himself in this position must go, right, what next?
Yeah, and I think the first thing you need to do with this is to admit that they have a problem, and you have to get to that point for yourself, and then you have to become the adult, which can be very traumatic if it's a parent. You're not ready for that. You're not ready to accept that responsibility.
Yeah.
But it literally comes and it smacks you in the face like a cricket bat. There's no if or buts. It's not a gradual progression. You're there, and get the diagnosis and then get onto social services. And if they say, oh, well, we can't do it, ring them every day, pester them until they crack.
Yeah.
You can't do it all yourself as well. That's what you realise as a carer. As much as you try, it's very, very okay to accept help.
What was your mum's diagnosis? What did she have?
She had vascular dementia with, I think the extra bits of that on the umbrella was prone to agitation and wondersome behaviour.
Right.
So she just started roaming, going out in the night. So she didn't know if it was day or night sometimes, she'd do the sundowning.
Yeah. Know all about that. And it's funny, actually, because it's like a homing pigeon instinct. Obviously, when Mum moved in with me, she was somewhere new because she'd lived independently and she'd actually lived in Scotland. So she's in another country. She's with her daughter, which is fine. She recognises that, but she knows she's not at home. But when sundown comes, the home she wants to go back to is the one that she had as a kid.
My mum was exactly the same. And I took my mum to a childhood home.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't my house.
Oh, wow.
This isn't my house. Why have you brought me here? This isn't my house.
So what was she looking for? Did you ever figure that out?
All she kept asking my mum every day was, when's my mum and dad coming? When are they coming?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen my mum and dad?
Yeah.
And if I'd say, like, you know, because, you know, there's no right or wrong way with dementia, is it? It's all like a wheel, isn't it? And one thing I learned quickly was to agree with everything my mum said, to avoid all confrontation and meltdowns and frustrations.
Yeah.
To agree with everything. I say, yeah, they're on the way.
Yeah.
They're on the way.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Because then she'd forget and
it'll relax her. And then she'd be back again. Have you seen my mum and dad? When are they coming? You know.
Yeah.
And sometimes at certain points in the day, you generally know where she was up to with a pattern. Because the second thing that that I kind of worked through was, after the diagnosis, get the social care plan, but also create a routine around her that was as nourishing as possible, and to see how long I could get it, with her, because I had no idea I wouldn't be able to cope at some point with her, as she progressed. And the progression was pretty quick. It was pretty rapid. I did 6 months with her, and she went from sleeping pretty well, about 5 or 6 hours, to having about half an hour, and pacing. And this was with everything that these experts had recommended in terms of medication to help soothe her anxiety and agitation.
How did you cope with a lack of sleep?
I'm still recovering from that. 3 years later, I'm really precious about my sleep now, and I don't have any trouble. I could lie down in here now and sleep. It was all part of the journey. To be on that. It kind of felt like a Mad Hatter's tea party. Yeah. With my mum at the centre of it and a beagle floating around, hoovering the food up in between, and he wasn't complaining. He was made up. He was like the fattest, chilled out dog in the world,
Yeah, a Wigan dog.
Wigan Beagle. Jeremy Beagle, we call him,
And did that help, actually? Because I'm wondering about getting a dog for Mum. She loves dogs.
The beauty about dementia, as sad as it is, and how it strips away every possible form of communication and dignity, is they're very organic and very childlike, and they connect instantly with music or people or animals and things like that. And anything that soothes them, go for it. Even if it's a fake dog, like a teddy or, something that makes sounds and stuff. I know the unit where my mum lived, they have all sensory activities, which is like projectors that go down so they can fish and pretend they fish and, do all stimulus and stuff. And they bring animals in because it's next door to a farm. Bring like little horses in and things like that. And they're all like, wow.
Yeah. You mentioned music. Obviously, that is your massive part of your identity and your mum's story. Yeah. So how did you use music? How did that impact on her?
Well, my mum, they used to call her the Wigan Pavarotti in the care home because she thought she was the greatest singer in the world, but she couldn't sing.
Oh.
But she was dead loud, And at the beginning of lockdown, we did a music hour. We used to do a music hour to try and ease her agitation. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon, and my mum had a thing where she saw Roy Orbison as a teenage girl. So we always put Roy Orbison live in concert. And she'd be dancing away in the porch like this, and all this, and singing, really out of tune, much because, it was a really quiet time, so all the neighbours every day could hear my mum going, like it's just echoing round Wigan, and clap, 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 and a shuffling, but it really soothed her for a while. And then it stopped working. But if I sang to her when she went into care, it would calm her down.
Right.
But we had to keep moving. She'd never sat down. She couldn't sit down when she went into care.
Wow.
She never slept and she never sat down. So
that energy must have been exhausting.
It was for her, I think, as well, because she was a very quiet and quite a chilled out person who slept very well to not sleeping. So it was like the polar opposite of a character, which was, it was very interesting to watch. But it is part of the process, and everybody's journey is different when they're caring for someone. You know, it's as much as you think it's awful at the time and you're knackered and you want to bang your head on a table, and sometimes you go in the room and you're going, fuck, in the corner and biting your thing, or going punching a pillar, or having to go and do exercise to just get rid of your stress. It's a beautiful journey. It's a privilege that you'll never, ever have to do that again in your life. It's just a beautiful badge. So wear it with pride.
Lovely message. What were you angry at when you were screaming?
Just the fact that I'd had no sleep, that my mum was repeating, you know, like a parrot. You know, it's just like, oh my God. And just the fact that, it was just the frustration in the day sometimes that I never quite got enough time to myself. You know, which was wonderful because I was such a Rottweiler with social services. I was like, get me counselling immediately.
So you got counselling, brilliant.
Yeah, and whatever counsel that you are with, whatever social care package that you're with, when you're caring for someone, you can contact social services and they'll put you onto the carers kind of association of that council, and you're entitled to 6 free counselling sessions of an hour.
Brilliant.
With a professional counsellor, which I recommend that, you know. The one thing to come out of lockdown is we all need to take care of our headspace and making sure that we have enough us time and not feeling guilty about that, you know. Because you always think, oh, I wonder what they're doing now, because you're so wrapped in that existence of you caring, you know.
You
but
never
that
really let go.
decompression time, you have to take time out, you know, and you're also entitled to respite as well. And that is an awful thing to consider when you think, I am never doing that. That's like throwing them in a vat of acid or in a pool of piranhas, you know, they'll get destroyed. But they won't. You'd be amazed at how well they do in care.
So what form does respite take? Tell me about that, because I'm not.
So respite is where, obviously you're doing it with daycare now, but if you have a social care package, you're entitled to about, I think, is it 4 to 6 weeks of free care where you can choose a care home and put your parent in, so you can have a holiday or go abroad or go on holiday or just lay at home watching Netflix and eating ice cream. You know, which is the dream, isn't it, when you're a carer? Just that space on your own. It's amazing, and that's your entitlement.
Wow. Again, I don't think a lot of people know about that. And also, is it a way of kind of preparing for an inevitable move? I mean, not everybody necessarily will spend their end stages in care, but most people will presumably do that. So it gets a chance for them to get used to it.
And it's worthwhile talking with your social worker about finding the right home, you know, and seeing what works for your parent and not feeling guilty, just letting go. I mean, the worst thing ever for me was I took my mum in for respite and I knew immediately I can't have her back. Wow. Because if I have her back, I'm going to burn out completely. There was very little left of me at that point. And her agitation was so bad. And I remember taking her almost like a dog to the vets, where I had to pack a bag in a case. And I got her a 3D pillow of Milo on. And she had this 3D pillow with a beagle on it. And I had to walk to the doors and they took her. And I just remember looking at the back of her and thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm never going to see her again. That's it. And then I went home. I made some bread. I crawled on the couch. I ate the bread and I was asleep for 3 days.
Wow.
And then I realised, shit, I'm tired. And I have to recover. So I arranged with the social worker then. Like, I know I said 2 weeks, but I want to do the full respite thing. I need a month off. I just need to come to. And then I was like, after 2 weeks, I was like, I can't have her back. What do I need to do now? And then it was that process of finding permanent care for my mum, you know.
Yeah.
And originally that care home said, we can do it, you know, we can see to her. And then when she kept letting all the fire alarms off and nicking everybody's cigs and robbing everybody's vapes, which she's quite a thief, my mum.
Mine
with
is
the dementia.
too.
She used to have plates down her pants and salt and pepper shakers in her shoes and... you know,
magpies, little magpies.
Ridiculous what she could store.
Oh.
It was like something like, you know, Fagin in Oliver. She'd have about 3 jumpers on and
with different name labels in for different people.
Yeah, and fighting over stuff. My mum was quite feral, which she'd be really embarrassed about because she was very calm, very chill, very hippie-ish, you know, as a well person. But this woman became almost kind of like this operatic thief from a musical, which you could literally hear her on the car park. You go, oh, she's all right.
Oh, good.
She's fine.
It's a sound,
fine,
reassuring sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny when I haven't really thought about how do you take the decision to stop caring. And sometimes the decision is made for you, but it sounds like you decided this is the end of that particular chapter.
Yeah.
And was it the best thing for you? And
it was. I think it saved me. It saved me in many ways, and it made our relationship better. And I was very lucky because I have friends who've been through the process that are all different ages. One thing that you find in this journey of being a carer is it doesn't matter who you are in the world. You know, there is someone going through this at different stages. And I had great friends that I worked with years ago that said to me, like, you know, you do know, like, when you put her in, you're probably not going to want her to have her back because you're going to realise you're really tired. And that's all right. It's going to be okay. And I was like, never, I'll never, ever. And I was like, yeah, fucking done. Like, immediately. And that was no disrespect to my mum.
No.
I loved her with every fibre of my being. I still do. But you just get to a point where it's critical. You just, for your own well-being. And if you know you have to let go.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest bit. It breaks your heart, you know, but it's a privilege getting back to it.
So what's it inspired you to do? Because obviously you've, you know, taken this, you've gone through the kind of caring part of the journey. So
I have. What it's inspired me to do is, and what I realised from lockdown through doing music is it's very good for soothing and relieving people. And having a little bit of music therapy, you know, the whole premise of music therapy is improvisation, especially the Nordoff Robbins approach, which is where you kind of play or sing or articulate music, and then that person that is either ill or brain damaged or whatever communicates that back. What I provide is a music and memory service, so I research all the age demographic of wherever I'm going. And I will research a set of music that almost kind of is like an ignition switch. You know, what are the best songs for dementia? What were the best songs of these decades? And I just go in and sing for them. And they love it. It's like being in Glastonbury, but without the drink and drugs. Yeah. You know, of sorts. You know, obviously, they're all on meds, but, you know, and it's really wonderful to see people that are, you know, not able-bodied, that are in chairs, going for it, grooving, and people that are, you know, that were just kind of sat there up playing I have loads of blow-up instruments. You know, I've got a car now packed full of blow-up guitars and saxophones and microphones and a full PA to take to this unit this afternoon. To just give them a lovely hour of music and help them relax and just come back, because it's beautiful to see how a person, and they're almost like helium balloons, someone with dementia, they're floating around in their own little orbit, and then this music, and you literally see them come back into the room and come back to life for a minute. You see the characters, and what the units do is they'll have the parents or carers with them. And the amount of times I've been watching, because a professional singer, you work rooms and you watch and you observe people all the time, but you see these carers and they're usually wiping tears because they remember that music and that parent and having them back for that minute. And then they'll go back. The minute the music stops, they just float away into the distance. And it's in aid of my mum. It's called Glow Sing, because I used to call my mum Glow Jo. in the unit where she was, because she was very loud and very active right up until about a day before she died.
Yeah.
You know, she was punching paramedics in the face and stuff, you know, very, you're not going to take me alive kind of thing.
Yeah. So she's Gloria.
Gloria, yeah.
Lovely.
But, yeah, it's called Glossing, the service. So,
Great. So is that where you've got to get off to now?
What time is it now? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you so much for coming in, Claire. Honestly, I haven't had to say anything. You've just completely told this amazing story, and I just feel like
I could go on. I could do chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well,
7,
will
8.
You come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me, and it was worthwhile just seeing you laughing and crying there at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've enjoyed it.
I have, and I'm at a slightly different stage, but it's great to know that obviously none of us are alone doing this, and everybody's gone through it, and you can get through it. And
you can, and it is. Remember, when you're on your arse and you think there's nothing more to give, and there will be days like that where you're just a shell of your former self, and that person, you could throttle them. You really could. It's like having a bad 2-year-old, you know. Just know that that's just one day, and tomorrow's another day, and you will get through it. And what a privilege it is. You're going through that. It's not a karmic purpose. It's part of a wonderful journey, and it's your duty to hold that person. Even if you have to walk them to the end, which is what I did with my mum, and it absolutely kills you. I've blogged about this, but it's a privilege.
Indeed. And it was a privilege speaking to you.
Thank you,
Claire.
Thank you.
You sound like you care.
I do. I bloody do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. And please like, subscribe, follow, and join our community of unpaid family carers on the Do I Sound Like I Care socials at Carer Podcast. Do I Sound Like I Care is a Libra Studios production and was produced and edited by David Barnes. Claire's experience of respite and counselling is specific to her. It's possible that your local authority might have different rules about carers' entitlements, so there may not be 6 sessions of counselling or 6 weeks of respite available in your area, but if it isn't that much, it bloody well should be. See you next time.